Ready? Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Alexis Anderson. I'm the Scholarships Administrator here at the National Society of High School Scholars. Welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn something new, to be here, to hear from your peers, parents, to hear from some students and things like that. So to kick things off, we are going to get started with just some kind of general NSHSS related scholarship information. So important deadlines, things to know about our programs and the way that we run our scholarships. And then we'll get to hear from our lovely student panelists that have joined us today. These are all NSHSS scholarship winners that have been through our process before. And I'm sure some of them have probably won a bunch of outside scholarships too. So maybe they'll have a different perspective outside of our organization to share. You will have a chance to leave some questions. We'll get to your questions kind of intermittently throughout the webinar and then also towards the end. So if you have any questions, make sure you drop them in the Q&A. We'll get to as many as we can. And then if time allows, I'm just going to go through some kind of general scholarship do's and don'ts, some things that we see on applications a lot from students, some things that are really good, some things that aren't so good, what to avoid, what to try out, and just some general things like that to wrap it up. Okay, so to kick things off, firstly, NSHSS and its partners award more than $2.5 million in scholarships annually. Our scholarship programs go across all high school and college grade levels, so you are eligible to apply and be awarded a scholarship at any point in your high school or college journey. That's something kind of unique about our scholarships is that we start awarding students from their freshman year of high school, so it's never too early to start applying. And we have programs that are available across pretty much all disciplines. So we have some athletic-based scholarships, some art-related scholarship, dance, music, film, things of that nature, leadership, creative writing, academic excellence, STEM, innovation, pretty much you name it. If you have an interest, a hobby, something that you're really passionate about, community service project, anything of that sort, chances are we have a program for you that will touch something in that area. So definitely keep that in mind when you're going through our programs and you're thinking about what to apply to. Um, this is the general structure for how all of our scholarships will look. It's going to vary a little bit program to program, but pretty much this is what you're going to see across all of them. So for all of the scholarships, we do require one minimum up to two educator letters of recommendation. This can be from a teacher, a counselor, a mentor, a coach, your boss, just somebody that knows you really well that can speak on behalf of your character, of your academic abilities, things of that nature. All of our scholarships are going to have a writing component. Most of them are a 500 to 800 word essay, and the prompts will vary program to program. We do ask for your academic resume, a color headshot, and your transcript. So that's going to be across the board. As far as eligibility is concerned, it's going to vary program to program based on your graduation year and your GPA. So some of our scholarships have a GPA requirement of 3.5, some of them do not. You will be granted access to a program based on your high school graduation year. So if you're trying to figure out if you're eligible for something, just look for the year that you're going to graduate, and if that's listed, then you're good to go. We have two separate umbrellas of scholarships. So we have our member-only scholarships that are NSHSS member-specific. Only our students can apply for those scholarships. So those pools of applicants are usually a little bit smaller, so they're not quite as competitive, something to keep in mind when you're looking at our programs. The public scholarships are open to everybody, member or not non-member. Those scholarships are paid through the NSHSS Foundation, which is the 501c3 entity of our organization. So two major distinctions there. And like I mentioned, we have opportunities across all grade levels. If you are a high school senior or a college student, your scholarship will get paid directly to your university. And if you are freshman, sophomore, junior in high school and you're not quite sure where you're going to school yet, your scholarship will get paid directly to you with a W-9 form that you'll need to submit. So that's the difference there. Most of our scholarships end up getting paid to the university, but that's kind of a distinction of what to expect if you're an underclassman and you're starting this process a little bit early. Each of our students are eligible to win one scholarship per calendar year, so we don't do it based on the academic year. It's if you've won one in 2025, you're not eligible for another one until 2026. You can apply for as many as you want, but you're only able to win one per year. Our applications are going to open and close on a rolling basis throughout the year, but mostly in two major chunks, one in the fall and one in the spring. So keep an eye out as the year goes on for new opportunities as they open. We always have something open on our website at all times throughout any part of the year. So if you don't see something right now that you're super interested in, check back in like towards the end of the summer, towards the beginning of the fall. That's when the new ones start to open up. So there's always going to be a new opportunity. So just keep looking for it. We do get hundreds of submissions for our scholarships. So we do our very best to release decisions within 6 to 8 weeks of the close date. So that's not of when you submitted your application, but when the program closes, that's the deadline of when you'll find out the award decision after that. Okay, and then like I said, we are joined by some of our lovely NSHSS scholarship winners who have been successful in this process, and hopefully we'll have some really cool insights, maybe some new strategies for you on how to navigate this process. So to kick things off, we've got Ariana. Ariana is a rising senior at Health Careers High School in San Antonio, Texas, and she is the recipient of the 2024 Be More Fund, which is a really cool program with NSHSS that I can get to later, and a 2025 18 Under 18 scholarship recipient. She is also had been a member of NSHSS since 2022. She's been a passionate supporter and advocate for health equality as the founder of a 501c3 nonprofit, Access to Specialist Knowledge, which empowers and connects healthcare workers in underserved regions to board-certified medical specialists. She also leads free preventative health and vital screenings for immigrant and low-income communities throughout Texas and conducts research on the efforts of herbal medicine in the DRC. Welcome, Ariana. Thank you so much for joining us today. So happy to have you. All right, and then we've got Simon. Simon is a talented vocalist, D3 track and cross-country commit, dedicated student, and another recipient of the NSHSS 18 Under 18 Award. Simon is currently studying vocal performance and psychology and has graced national stages with his voice, performed at state fairs, and even competed at the Nike Oregon Relays. He brings a unique blend of artistic and academic passion, and we're thrilled to have him here to share his experience and his insights on navigating the scholarships journey. Thank you so much, Simon, for joining us. Welcome. All right, and then lastly, we've got Jessie. Jessie is an incoming freshman at Harvard University. She was accepted to Yale, Princeton, and Stanford with full ride offers to all. Very impressive. Jessie has earned $175,000 in external scholarships and plans to major in government and ethnic studies. During high school, she founded two nonprofits, established a government council, and worked at an international organization. She's raised over $10,200, contributed to the passage of legislation, and completed internships with legislators and government institutions. So Jessie's a perfect example of somebody that's won a bunch of scholarships not related to NSHSS. She might be a good person to direct some of those kinds of questions to. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Yay, our panelists are here. Alrighty. Okay. Can you guys still see my screen? No? Okay, cool.
Yep.
All right, awesome. Okay, so let's get things started. So the first question that I have for all of you, since a lot of you guys have, I'm sure, you're pros at applying to scholarships. You've probably done it a lot of times, a lot of different places. You're all very involved students, extracurriculars, academics. So how do you keep everything organized when you're applying to multiple different programs? Keeping up with your school, having a social life, hang out with your family. How do you keep it all straight and keep the deadlines and all of that stuff in check? Simon, do you want to start?
Sure. For me, how I keep it, the short answer is that I use a spreadsheet to like track all my scholarships and like the deadlines and stuff. They can get over the deadlines, the required materials, and like the application statuses. Like, so I know like what date does it due by, but what date is the announcement date if there is an announcement date that they have. Um, I kind of do that to make sure that my mind can like stay on one track because usually for scholarship deadlines, I might like glaze over one because there's all these other extracurricular events or something. A track meets on this scholarship deadline, so I should make sure to do it a week or two early or something, and kind of just like balance all that stuff with family because I also want to be present and all that social life type of stuff, and that's kind of what I would say. It helped me keep everything in one place, so that's what I'd say.
That's awesome. That's also a really great strategy to get in the hang of in high school. I know that a lot of college students that use that same strategy for keeping all their assignments and classes in check and all of that. So it's really good that you're starting that early, and clearly it's been successful for you so far. So thank you. Ariana, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I guess when looking at scholarships, I like to look for two things and really keep track of two things. One is, of course, like when is the deadline? When do I need to submit my application by? And then I set another date for myself to send an email or something requesting for the letter of recommendation, because you always want to give a generous amount of time for your letter recommender to write like a good letter. So also try to maintain a deadline for that so that I can ensure that they have enough time to, write their letter. As for like tracking, I kind of treat scholarships as like a, like a big school project from like multiple different classes. And so I guess whatever you would use for school, so whether that be writing it on a calendar, like in an agenda, using apps like Google Calendar, Notion, or things like that, I think are a really good way of like managing and keeping track of multiple scholarships.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad that you mentioned recommenders. We're definitely going to get to that. That's something that you need to keep in mind because that's part of your application that doesn't just involve you. And you want to make sure you're giving a lot of leeway. So I think that's awesome. Thank you so much. Jesse, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure. So I also used a spreadsheet to track everything. One thing that I'll also add on is that whenever I found scholarships that opened a little bit later on in the year, I would schedule an email to myself so that I would receive that email, and then I can remember to check back on the scholarship to see like, oh, when is it open? When are the applications due, etc. And then I think also just to touch quickly on other aspects outside of scholarships, how do you manage and balance your social life, your schoolwork, etc. I think definitely if you're not using Google Calendar or like an Apple Calendar or something like that, you should definitely get on that. And I think other than that, I also was really fortunate to realize and recognize when I worked best. So for me, I felt the most productive during school hours, actually, when I was surrounded by my classmates and like I was kind of in that learning environment. And so I was really able to kind of just like focus on doing all my schoolwork, write essays, write scholarship essays, etc. But then when I got home, I felt like it was more of like I just felt kind of lazy and I felt like I couldn't really focus at home. And so instead, I would use that time to attend meetings or like work on things for my nonprofit or organizations and just overall use that time more effectively. And so I think it would be really helpful for people to kind of just like sit down, reflect on when exactly am I at my peak in terms of productivity and focus, and then making sure to capitalize off of that and planning out your day based on how you feel naturally.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I do think it's important, like you said, to find those pockets of time when that work best for you and when you feel the most productive. For me, I'm a morning person. It's really hard for me to get anything done after like 2 p.m. That's just like when my brain starts to slow down for the day. So, this isn't for scholarships, obviously, but for other things, I'm more productive in the morning. So those more challenging tasks I tackle like the first thing I do when I sit down to work for the day. So I think that's a similar strategy that you can apply to scholarships. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing as just applying to anything, colleges, all of that kind of stuff. So you just have to try out different things and find out what works best for you. So all great advice. Thank you guys so much. So since you're all from such unique backgrounds and you have unique stories, how did you stand out in your applications? What kind of things did you include to maybe connect with the reader, while also paying attention to the prompt? Did you have any strategies for, capturing the attention of the review committee when you were applying to scholarships? Ariana, do you want to start this time?
Yeah, so kind of my approach to really any application is starting with what are they looking for? Maybe they have like a mission or a vision. Typically under all, at least NSHSS scholarships, they have a description of, what type of people are they looking for? And from that, really fleshing out like a thesis or a core idea of who I am and what I want to convey in the application. So from there, from that core idea, any following essays, I try to make it as like examples that support this core idea of who I am and what I want to convey. And I don't know how much that can make you stand out, but at least it'll be a cohesive story. And you know that no matter what, the reader will understand what you're trying to convey through that method. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Simon. Any strategies for standing out with your essays?
For me, I would say of course, as Ariana said, make sure like your application or essay reflects what the organization you're applying for wants, of course. And in addition to that, something I feel like is also maybe left unsaid, but also helps you just stand strong is having a really good updated CV or resume. Keep that updated regularly because sometimes oh, and sorry, I just realized something with that with the resume. But when you're having a resume and you're updating it and stuff, so you to apply to a scholarship or whatever, be sure it's like completely updated to the most recent date because maybe you might submit a scholarship early, like way early maybe and something else happened, you get this award or this recognition, or you have this project that you did that you can't deliver the stats for because it's already submitted, you know? So keeping that kind of updated resume to the date is really important, I think.
I totally agree. And we are going to touch on resumes because I think that's something that high school students struggle with because they're not sure what to include and all of that stuff. And it is a really important part of applying for scholarships and for college. So I'm glad you brought that up. Jesse, do you have any strategies for standing out in your applications amongst a sea of hundreds and thousands?
Yeah, definitely. So for me, in a lot of my essays, I wrote about being first generation low income. And then, I would also touch on my identity as like an Asian American. And a lot of my essays mostly just drew from my lived experiences and kind of memories I have. And then from there, I would take those memories and try to connect it back to like, why do I now have this interest in government, for example? And then connect that into like, okay, what did I do with my interests? Did I go out and actively look for extracurriculars or internships that are related to my major? And then relate it back to the scholarship at the end. Like, why do I need this money? Why would this be beneficial to me? And to me, that's kind of like the best recipe, I guess, almost for writing a good essay. And as somebody who has gone through like the college application process as well, I would say scholarship essays are very different from college application essays. Those usually look, in my own experience, more towards like, who are you as a person? Do you have, do you have a thirst for learning? Are you reflective? Are you introspective? Whereas I feel like scholarship essays look a little bit more towards what have you done in your community? What has your impact been? What are some of your extracurriculars? So I would say even before you start applying for scholarships, you should prioritize instead building up those extracurriculars to show that you deeply care about the subject or the major that you're interested in, and then use that as a way to boost your applications to scholarships, because truly that's the main way to stand out, I think.
I totally agree with that. And you're totally right that the difference between a scholarship essay and a college essay is that when you're applying to a college, you're not just applying for money, but you're also applying to be part of the community. So they want to make sure that the student that they're accepting, that their values align with the mission of the institution. Whereas a scholarship, they're more so looking for how is this student going to take this money and make something good with it, like make sure that you're devoted to what you're doing and that it's an investment in their future and in their journey. So it's a little bit different along the same lines, but I would agree that your scholarship essays a lot of the time are going to be more activity focused. With that, though, I think there is a very delicate balance between connecting your personal story to the prompt and also including your experiences. You kind of have to find the balance between um, listing your extracurriculars, but also like connecting it to who you are as a person. I always advise students that your scholarship applications should read as like a complete narrative of who you are as a student, as a person. Where do your interests align? So your resume should be supporting your what you're talking about in your essay, and what your recommender is talking about you should also be supportive of those things. So it all needs to kind of connect and like paint a picture for the reader. The essay in particular, I think that it's very important to keep the personality in the essay because that's really the only space in your application where you have freedom in that moment to change whatever you want. So that's your one chance in the application to connect to the reader and get them to see you as a person. So definitely take advantage of that opportunity and include some personal anecdotes and things about your personality and what's important to you, what drives you, how that is reflected in your extracurriculars. It all needs to kind of mend together. So that's my advice on how to stand out. Keep your personality in your essay, but also make sure that you're including the professionalism and all of that stuff that reflects like your journey as a student. Okay, awesome. Thank you guys so much. Okay, so while we're on the topic of resumes, do you guys want to maybe give some advice on what a resume should look like for a high school student? Like because a lot of students get confused with resumes. They list their classes, they have 7, 8 pages of extracurriculars. So how do you decide what is important enough to put on your resume, and how do you organize it and do all of that stuff as a high school student? Jesse, do you want to start this time?
Sure. So first off, a resume should definitely only be 1 to 2 pages max. They should not be 10 to 7 pages. I think other than that, one of the main kind of pitfalls is maybe with the description of people's extracurriculars that they include on their resume. I think a big misconception people have overall, just in general, with the college application process is that you get a lot of space to write about your extracurriculars. And the truth is, you really only get like 125 characters to write about extracurriculars within the extracurricular section. And I think you should take kind of the same mindset when you're writing your extracurricular descriptions for your resume as well. A lot of the times, you don't really want to be using full sentences. You want to use bullet points, or you want to do like short, kind of interconnected, incomplete sentences to fully explain what you do on a day-to-day basis and the impact that you've had with your extracurricular, but also making sure that that information is communicated in the most concise and most transparent way. So that's one thing. I think in addition to that, one thing I do like to include is just like a little bio at the top of my resume that includes some of my values, who I am as a person, and then my future goals, just because that might not be something you're able to touch on in your supplemental or in your regular application essay. And so including that on their resume might be able to give the reviewer more information about you and who you and what you stand for.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I totally agree, and a resume should never be more than 2 pages, especially as a high school student. You don't need to put absolutely everything on there, really just the most important highlights. That's kind of what a resume is. You don't need to put all of your AP classes and everything if you need space for other things, so keep that in mind. Ariana, do you want to add on anything about resume building?
Yeah, so I think it's good to have kind of one like CV with everything you do. And then when applying to a specific program, kind of picking the most relevant things from your long list of activities, from your long list of classes, and then putting it on like a specifically tailored made resume for whatever you're applying for. So then it kind of adds to your story, it kind of adds to the like cohesiveness, and it shows that, hey, I'm the really like one of the most perfect candidates because look at everything on my resume that can support specifically what I'm applying for.
Yeah, I totally agree. There are some instances where you totally can create a new resume. I used to do that when I was in college and I was applying for internships and things. I had one resume with all of my professional activities, and then I was a server and a bartender in college, and I worked in restaurants a lot, and I had a totally different resume with only that relevant information on it because neither industry really cared about the other one for the purposes of what I was doing. So that's just an example of how sometimes it's okay to kind of tailor your resume and your application to demonstrate what you want the reviewer to know about you. specific to the task at hand. Simon, do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I kind of would say some of the same, of how like, for me, not in addition to have like the updated resumes, I do have different versions of my resumes for different things. Like, my regular general resume is not as long or is as detailed as my performance resume, which has all my repertoire and all my performances of song that I have. If I'm applying to a music program or summer music intensive or any of the similar things that are music related I'd be pursuing. And it's important to note that like what is it? Like, of course, like, I just said, you don't list all your AP classes, but if you say like you're an AP scholar with whatever honor, just that one line will that'll work, right? Because you kind of give you could just let them know that you're established, but you don't have to let them know every single caveat of that. Like, that's gonna take their time as the reviewers when you think of it too. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you also need to think about it as your resume. The person that's reading your resume, whether it be for college, scholarships, a job, they're going to glance at it. It needs to be something that they can take in the information like very quickly. So bullet points needs to be organized, it needs to be like the most powerful parts of your journey as a student. Okay, it looks like somebody asked, since we are on the topic, for a scholarship I'm applying for, it seems all of my activities will fit on one page. Is it bad if I include all of them if the length fits? Absolutely not. You can include all of it. Really, that's really just like if you find that your resume is like getting a little bit too long and it's getting into that 3-page territory, you need to find some stuff to cut out of there. But if all your stuff fits on it, then include everything that you can think of to include. Um, I think it really just depends. Resumes should be more content driven than style. Personally, I'm not really bothered when resumes have headshots and they're colorful and things like that. Some people do mind that. So I think as a general best practice, it's keep it simple, keep it organized, and fit as much on one page as you can without it looking too busy. But if everything that you're doing fits on there, then by all means include it. That's my advice. Okay, moving right along, letters of recommendation. I think this is a very underutilized aspect of an application. So does anybody have any advice for asking for a letter of recommendation? How much time you want to give the person, what you want to ask them to include, just like how to get a quality letter of recommendation. Simon, do you want to start?
Yes, and when you're asking for a letter of recommendation, of course, you gotta make sure to give a couple of weeks at the very least a few weeks in advance. Like a month would be very ideal because the person not only has to write it, but send it to you. But also, in addition to sending it to you, there are multiple different scholarship applications that aren't as user friendly, and they want the actual email from the person who gave you the letter of recommendation to make their own account and send it to their portal for their application. So like that means that the recommender has to submit it themselves from their emails. So that requires extra communication, but also have gratitude with that and have nice and lots of patience. That's why you got to get it done early. So it can always be a nice stress-free process.
Yes, that is the case on most recommendations, I would say, for colleges and things like that. That's a security thing, it's a confidentiality thing, it's a verification thing. That's the way that we do our recommendations is the recommender has to be the one to upload them. You can't submit a recommendation on behalf of somebody else. It's just like to make things fair across the board, but it does take more time and tech problems come up as they do. So the most leeway that you can give a recommender before a deadline, the better. And being available to help them through the process if they need it, I think is also a really good strategy. Ariana, do you want to add anything onto that recommendation letters?
Yeah, I think I guess like advice for trying to get hoping that a teacher can give you a good letter of recommendation is of course ask early and try to shoulder a lot of the work for them. So kind of what I do is I make a document with very unique or very specific moments that me and the teacher shared. So whether it be like a project that you put a lot of work into or moments of like character in the class, something like very specific moments that only this teacher can tell about you or really anybody who knows you well. And I think kind of like the goal of a letter of recommendation is to show like who you are as a person and have someone else to attest for that. So having those like unique moments that go beyond anything in a resume, I feel can be very valuable to give that person who you're asking for a letter from.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think the more information that you can give your recommender about what it is you're applying for and, anything that you're doing that maybe they're not aware of, the better. The more that a recommender can speak in detail about what you're doing to kind of vouch for what you're including in your application, the stronger it's going to be. So the more details that you give them, the easier it is for them to write you a good recommendation. If a recommender doesn't know a lot about you, it shows in the recommendation, and recommendation can be kind of like the tiebreaker between really strong applications. So take them seriously and give your recommender as much information as possible. I think that's really good advice. Jesse, do you want to add on anything to that?
Yeah, so I think this isn't a super well-known hack, but something that I used was that in my junior year of high school, I realized that there were a couple programs that actually made you submit the letter of recommendation on your recommender's behalf. Um, I'll name drop one, for example. It's the Bank of America Student Leaders Program that requires you to submit a letter of recommendation on behalf of your recommender. And so I kind of use that as a way to take a peek at my recommender's letter to see how it would fare for college applications. And I'm actually really glad I did because I ended up like testing 3 teachers, and one of them used like a template to write my letter of recommendation, which, if you don't know, is kind of a red flag when it comes to reviewing applications. So I knew from that, like, I'm not going to use that person's recommendation letter. But it also just overall gave me a sense of like, how well do I think this teacher knows me? What did they exactly touch on in their letter? And then how can I, give them more information so that I can improve it subtly? And obviously during college applications and admissions, I did not take a look at those letters afterwards. I think outside of that, seeing like a sneak peek of those letters, I think it's also really important to honestly just talk to your teachers about the projects that you're working on and even try to get them like to help out in some way, whether that's just asking them for advice, and just like overall giving them that additional information that you do projects outside of class that connect back maybe to that teacher's background or something that the teacher knows about you. That way, the teacher is able to really authentically speak on those extracurriculars beyond just yourself, and they can provide more information again to the reviewer so that they see that, this isn't just like a made-up project. There's evidence of other people supporting it and knowing about it. And so just overall talking to your teacher, building that connection by not only talking about assignments and school-related things, but also your extracurriculars is super important.
Yes, that's great advice. I've gotten questions before from students about, who to ask for their letter of recommendation. General advice would be to ask the person that knows you the best, but I think it also depends on what you're applying for. Like I know for a lot of STEM related internships and projects and things of that nature, they want a recommendation from a STEM educator or a mentor or something of that sort. So I think pay attention to like the details of what you're applying for and tailor who you're asking based on who's the most involved in that field and things like that. So general advice for the purposes of like our scholarships and things like that, I would say ask the person that knows you the best. But if you're applying for something super specific, like, some kind of grant or something of that nature, you might want to include people that are in that arena. It just will strengthen your application a little bit. There's no wrong way to do it necessarily, but I think it would definitely be helpful if they could speak on behalf of what the area is that you're applying for. Jesse, I see that you wanted to answer this one live. So do you want to do, is it okay to apply for scholarships even if I'm debating on what I want to major in?
Yeah, I accidentally clicked answer this question live, but I'll still answer it. Um,
Okay.
um, Yeah, it's definitely okay to apply for scholarships. There's a lot of scholarships where it's just open generally, like the scholarship I won, which is the first generation scholarship, is just open to anybody who will be the first person in their family to attend college. So it's totally okay. And in fact, it could even be something that you maybe mention or explore in your essay to show that kind of depth, or maybe the fact that you have a lot of diverse interests or something like that. But I think at the very least, knowing like a general ballpark of what kind of field, whether it's humanities or STEM, you want to major in, that at the very least will be definitely helpful for college admissions. And then that will also help you track down which scholarships are at the very least related to your field.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. For our scholarships, we have some that are major specific, like we have some STEM scholarships and things like that that are tailored for people that are planning to pursue those fields. So that's an example of a time when you maybe would need to kind of know the general area of where you're going into, but not all of them are like that. For our purposes, like you said, we have a lot of scholarships that are just kind of like personality based or like, first generation, like they're not specific to area of study in the future. A lot of our students are of course in high school, and most high schoolers, I would say, don't know what they want to do in college until probably the very end of their senior year. So that's not really the expectation. So don't let that limit you from applying to scholarships. It's really more like things that you're interested in, extracurriculars that you're involved in, things that apply to you. I think that is more specific than your major per se. Okay, I'm gonna try to get through a couple in the chat. The recording is gonna be available on the website and also on our YouTube channel, probably by tomorrow afternoon. So you'll be able to go back and listen to it and all of that stuff there. Let me see. Can you clarify if I can apply for scholarships once I'm in college, or they're only for high school students? We do have scholarships that are available for college students. We have like the college freshman scholarship and some other ones that are available for undergrad. So yes, the answer is there are options for you even if you're already in college. Especially if you're a freshman in college, there's quite a few for those. Okay, some more kind of general things. Are there any misconceptions about the scholarship application process that you'd like to clear up? Something that maybe you heard, that scared you a little bit, and then as you were going through the process, you realized that wasn't the case. Simon, do you want to start?
Just a second. Sorry, my mute thing was not muting or unmuting.
No,
So
you're good.
yeah. Um, you asked me about misconceptions, right? Misconceptions, and myths. For me, I think I've understood I applied to like a ton of scholarships, as probably Jesse and Ariana have, and my biggest myth that I found out was just clear to my head is like that just because you didn't get a scholarship doesn't mean like you're not any less of a person, or doesn't mean you're any less of like your obligation wasn't good. And just know that for every 5 or 10 no's you get, there may be one yes. And all you got to do is just like keep trying and keep applying and plan yourself and have great build that time management with that, because you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So apply if you're even unsure.
So true. Ariana, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I guess like in general, I used to have this perception that the more effort I put into something, the more like result I would get. And while that's true to some point, it's I guess it doesn't apply like fully. So you can spend, hours and hours and hours on this one scholarship just to get like, oh, we regret to inform you that we couldn't choose you. And then for like another completely random one where maybe you wrote your essays the night before, not that you should do that, but allegedly if you do, um that you can receive that. So I think um you know just try to apply to as much as you can, because you never know what will click with the people who are reading it, and you never know what you may like surprisingly get. So yeah.
That is very true. Jesse, any misconceptions you want to clear up about the scholarship process?
Yeah. So I actually calculated my ratio for rejections to acceptances because I was curious. Um, and I think the last updated number I had was like for every 10 rejections, I received like one acceptance. So it really does go to show you need to apply to a lot of scholarships, or maybe not, you don't need to apply to a lot, but um, don't be saddened by rejections because acceptances will come eventually, especially if you are also spending your time building up your extracurriculars and making sure that you're making a positive impact on the communities that you want to fight for. But I think one misconception I would say is that you need to be like marginalized or you need to be underrepresented as a minority, or you have to just overall fit this specific mold of what people think scholarship reviewers want to see. And I think typically people think of like need-based scholarships in terms of like, oh, they have to be low income, they have to be an underrepresented minority, etc. But the reality is there are so many scholarships out there that really do accept people from all different backgrounds. And even if you feel like you're discouraged from applying because you feel like you don't have enough need for a scholarship, again, it's, you know, you miss every shot you don't take. Um, and so I think that's super important to keep in mind as well. And then just going back to like the rejections thing, like I'm not afraid to admit that like I was accepted to scholarships with like sub 0.15% acceptance, but I've also been rejected from like scholarships that I thought I would definitely win, or at the very least get like semifinalists for. So everything is so like they're so independent from each other. Getting into one thing is not going to affect your outcome for another scholarship, or you know, not getting into this specific scholarship or this program is not going to affect your college admissions either. It's not a sign that you're not good enough. So I think those would be the main two things. Yeah.
I totally agree with all of that. I think that something that I hear from students a lot as someone that works closely in the scholarships arena is that students often get discouraged from applying because they don't think they have enough to show. They don't have enough extracurriculars, they don't have like good enough grades, what have you. And that is really not the case. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't hurt to have extracurriculars and things like that, but I would say that students who have like the craziest extracurriculars in the world, they can still write a bad essay. And if your essay is better and more powerful and you can connect your personality and your experiences more closely to the prompt and to the mission of the scholarship, then I think you have just as good a shot as anyone. So really it's about presentation. I think something to keep in mind is that the purpose of scholarships is to support students on their journey and to um, award students who the organization or the school or whoever believes is going to like, you know, continue their mission and all of that stuff and that they're devoted to what they're doing. And a really great way to show that is through extracurriculars, and that stuff is really important, but it's not the end all be all of an application. I've seen some applications from like students with like the craziest list of extracurriculars, but their essay lacked emotion, it lacked humanity, it lacked personality, and then they don't win from a student that maybe didn't have as many because they had a better connection to the prompt and they connected better to the reader. So I think if you think that you're underqualified to apply for something, that shouldn't stop you because you really never know who you're up against. That's the other thing. You could be the most qualified person in the bunch. You have no idea what the other applications are going to look like. So don't let that stop you from applying to scholarships. Like Simon said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So don't limit yourself and think that you don't have what it takes because that's just simply not the case most of the time. Okay, I'm gonna try to get through some of the ones in the chat. Does anybody have a good resource? How are they looking for scholarships? What are your strategies for searching for stuff? Do you have a master doc? Any hacks for people that maybe just like are overwhelmed and they don't know where to start? Simon, do you want to start with that one?
Sure. Of course, I think I'll just type this in a chat of you mind if I type in chat of some websites and stuff that are
Go ahead.
good and just okay. course.
Be
Oh,
my guest.
it's HSS. Other than that,
NSHSS, of course.
it's just, of course, of course. There's some good websites that definitely have some a wide variety of like things you can apply to. Like I also use bold.org. There's also Kaleidoscope, which has a lot of like there's a lot of like major restaurant brand scholarships in there. For example, there's the Taco Bell scholarship, the Carl's Jr. scholarship, there's the Pizza Hut scholarship, and things like that. So I'll just put those three. Kaleidoscope. Those couple of search engines, and then of course you cannot ever underestimate your local opportunities. And so, uh, always check your if you have like a high school counselor or something, a counseling office, always stop by there because sometimes they do post stuff, and not everyone checks in your senior class or in your junior class if there's some junior scholarship available. It never hurts checking. It never hurts.
That is great advice. A lot of those local scholarships get severely underutilized just because people aren't aware of them and they're not popping up on these search engines and stuff. So definitely like keep an eye out in your community for people that are offering scholarships. Your local library sometimes has resources like that available, your school librarian, your school counselors, your maybe like if you're in a club or athletics or something like that, talk to your coach, talk to your mentors, your advisors, things like that. There's a lot of like smaller scholarships that are really niche that go unused. I think there's some crazy number like in the millions of the amount of scholarship funds that go unclaimed every year just because people are not applying to them. So there are so many scholarships out there. Um, I've heard students tell me about scholarships that they won because they're left-handed, scholarships being the youngest sibling, scholarships for women over 5'10". Like there's so many things out there that are like random and so niche. So I think just search for anything and everything that you can think of, and there's probably something there. Um, Jesse or Ariana, do you guys have any places where you go to look for opportunities or any advice for searching amongst all of the millions that are out there?
Yeah. Sorry, Ariana. And just like a quick note, one of the weirdest scholarships I found was a scholarship that rewarded you for applying to other scholarships. So very interesting. I feel like when I'm not actively going out to search for scholarships, and the way I do that is mostly just like looking online, which I know sounds super generic, but you can really find some like gold mines of people who just like create these websites or these like blogs that have just like millions of scholarships on them, and they're usually like sorted by the month, so I would check in at like the beginning of every single month, and usually they're like smaller scholarships, like maybe like $1,000 to $5,000 maybe, and so then it's like a matter of like, okay, well, do I really want to prioritize this right now when I could be focusing on a scholarship that gives bigger like a bigger amount of money. But outside of those specific times where like I dedicate my day to searching and going through all those websites, I also just like to follow like accounts online, like on Instagram when I'm scrolling on Reels, and just like save them for when I'm on my computer to like look them up. Some that come to mind for me immediately is like Big Opportunities. There's this guy, I forgot his name, but like he talks about scholarships and he has like a broadcast channel as well where you can sign up and get like notifications and stuff. But honestly, once you stumble upon like a reel that's like suggesting a scholarship, and once you interact with it, then the algorithm will know that like, oh, you engage with those types of videos and that type of content, and then it'll just like keep recommending you more and more, which on one hand can get also like a little bit stressful, and you feel like, oh, I should be out there applying to like all these scholarships, which was definitely like a mindset I kind of fell into that is pretty toxic, but it can also be really helpful once you start saving those and like you're aware of those scholarships. And then I think also once you start getting accepted to scholarships or programs, usually you'll see those same like faces again and again in other programs, and they usually will have like other scholarships that they know about or they're applying to, and it doesn't hurt to just like ask them like, hey, do you have any scholarships that are on your radar right now? I know I like to send like scholarships to my friends and stuff like that. So yeah, I think mostly going on those like random shady blogs that have like all those links is really helpful, and then just like scrolling on Reels whenever I'm bored and saving those videos that I come across.
Awesome. Ariana, do you want to add anything? Also, if you guys have any like direct resources and stuff, like links or names of stuff. Can you answer them in the Q&A instead? Because the participants can't see the chat right now. That would be very helpful. Thank you so much. Okay, Ariana, do you want to add anything onto that?
I don't have much to add. I guess just one other resource that I use. It's called like the Scholarship Collective, I think. And it basically is this like weekly like email newsletter that's like, oh, here are all the scholarships that are open. Not all, but like a few of the scholarships that are open near you. And I find like getting an email is kind of works best for me because I'm like, oh, I can I don't know, it's just more on my radar. So I'll put that in too. But yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you guys so much. Okay, let me see if there's anything I can kind of rapid fire in here. Um, Okay, you mentioned that each student's eligible for only one scholarship per year. Does this mean I can apply for multiple scholarships but only be awarded one? Additionally, as a member, am I able to apply for both member and public scholarships? Yes, you can apply for both. Members are more than welcome to apply for the public scholarships. That just means that there's a larger pool of applicants, so you're competing against non-members as well, but you're totally able to apply for any of the scholarships on the website if you meet the eligibility requirements, if you're a member. Um, we only award one scholarship per student per year in in the hopes of diversifying the amount of people that we award scholarships to. So this prevents multiple people from winning up all the scholarships or something like that. So um, it keeps it a little bit more fair so that students have more of a chance because everyone's limited to one. So there's more winners every year, and it kind of, it increases your odds if only one person is allowed to win per year. But if you're a finalist for like multiple scholarships, we do our best to award based on like which one fits you the best. That doesn't happen very often just because there's literally hundreds of super qualified people. Um, but we do our very best to kind of match the scholarship. So if you've applied to multiple and you can only win one, we just try to give you the one that makes the most sense for your application and like, you know, what the mission of the scholarship matches like what you're doing and like who you are as a person, all of that stuff. But the goal is to award as many students as we can every year. So that's the purpose behind that rule that we have. Um, okay, how many recommendations can I have for our scholarships? You can have up to two. You have to have at least one. And like I said, you have to do them through the portal and all of that. Um, okay, does anybody want to jump in on this one? What are some important things I can include as an extracurricular if I don't have a lot of extracurriculars? So what's like some other stuff that you can put on your resume if you're not, if you don't have a ton of clubs and things like that to share? Does anybody want to jump in?
Yeah, definitely volunteering. I think people really underestimate the power of volunteering. On my college application and my resume, I made sure to include like how many hours I volunteered, where I volunteered at, and things like that. And that can definitely help you if you don't have any like traditional extracurriculars. And then also like if you're employed or working at a job, definitely consider that. I know for college missions, they also do like seeing people who, don't just dedicate their entire life and their entire day to studying and doing academic extracurriculars. They also like to see students with life experience, like working. So that's just something to keep in mind. And I think other than that, we were talking about like a headshot earlier. I would say to include a headshot. I think it is pretty divisive, like especially as you get older and you apply to actual jobs, maybe don't include a headshot, but I do think a headshot is nice to include when it comes to like a scholarship application, just to like humanize you further.
Yeah, some people have rules about headshots. It's becoming a lot more normal now. I see it more so recently than in the past. Like when I was growing up, it was like a no-no to have a headshot on your resume, but I think that the industry standard is like changing a little bit. So, I personally I feel pretty neutral about it, but some people feel strongly about it. So maybe just like get your parents and get other people to look at your resume, of course, and at everything that you're submitting, have a second set of eyes on it. I think that's like super important. Um, if you have, typos and grammar mistakes and things like that, that like really simple things can you know take away from the quality of your application. Because if you have a bunch of typos because you didn't read it multiple times or have somebody else look over it, and then somebody else who maybe has an equal caliber application doesn't, they're going to be ahead of you. So just don't let like silly little things like that like set you back. Okay. Let me see what else we can answer before we have to wrap up. What do you think about essay versus no essay scholarships? There's nothing wrong with a no essay scholarship. You just have to keep in mind that the pool is going to be a lot larger for those kinds of scholarships. So I think when you're looking for opportunities, it's important to kind of consider the, you know, how much time you're going to spend on something versus the reward that you might get back. The no essay scholarships are probably going to get thousands of applications because they're really fast, and the competition for the essay scholarships might not be as high. So there's nothing wrong with them per se. Definitely be careful with like where you're sharing your information, make sure it's reputable and everything. But there's nothing inherently wrong with a no essay scholarship, in my opinion. Um, let's see. Should you mention why you want the money in your essay? I would say only if the prompt asks. Just stay as close to the prompt as you possibly can. That's usually the best strategy. Um, I don't think it's necessary because everyone wants it for the same purpose. If you're applying for a scholarship, it's to help pay for school. So use your word count, your limited characters that you have to talk about yourself rather than talk about that would be my advice. Okay. Maybe just kind of to wrap up, do we want to talk about something you wish you had done differently? Maybe if you were starting over in your scholarships journey, what's something that you would have changed about how you approached it? Anything like that. Ariana, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think one thing I wish I would have done differently is kind of have more courage to ask for help and ask for other people to review what I'm writing. Because kind of when I started like writing a lot of my essays, um, I would write them and try to polish them as much as I can before sending it maybe to like one of my teachers, for example, to like look over and see. But then I found, like, by the time my teacher was able to go into it and, like, make suggestions, the deadline was so close that I couldn't really implement those, like, really great feedback that he gave me. And so I think even if your essays or something isn't fully polished, just sending an initial draft and seeing if anybody could help you revise it and help you, really streamline it to be, to sound, to sound better, to be more cohesive, be more clear would be something I wish I would have done differently.
I think that's awesome. Simon, do you want to add anything to that?
Um, I wouldn't, I'm in addition to that, I think I said it before, but still like making sure that like when you update, of course you update your resume, you submit and make sure everything's up to date. That's all I can say because it's kind of frustrating when you have something like I could really apply to specifically the application you're applying to. Like if I'm applying to music scholarship for music and then there's a music competition that say like I won or something and I could put that in as a thing in there or this music project that I did. So just make sure everything's up to date. That's all you can really do at the end of the day. Just make sure you can just review as much as times as possible. And yeah.
Well, Jesse, anything to add?
Yeah, I think for me, I wish I had maybe not taken so much time out of my day to like apply to smaller scholarships. I think those can be really, really helpful, but also just knowing the fact that like, if you're carving out time in your day to apply to this $1,000 or $500 scholarship, that's time away that you could be spending time with your family or friends. So I definitely regret a little bit spending too much time on scholarships. And I think I also kind of drove myself to burnout a little bit afterwards, just like with how many things I was juggling at once. Um, but overall, I think I'm really glad that I took like the shot and just like put my application forward, even though I knew that things are really competitive, especially with like the current, like how scholarships and college applications currently work. They're even more competitive. And I would say other than that, just yeah, spending more time with my family and friends.
Yeah, I think that's really important too. Burnout is a real thing, especially for high school students now. I mean, the students that I work with, they're doing so many crazy things and, they're so involved in everything. So I think taking time to yourself is important, grounding yourself a little bit. It's not going to be the end of the world if you don't get one of these opportunities. So just don't beat yourself up too much. And also to kind of take away from some of that burnout feeling, start early. Start as early as you can. There's no such thing as starting too early. Even if those early applications aren't super successful, you'll learn something from it. You'll learn what worked, what didn't work. It might work out for you, but at the very least, it'll be great practice. So I think and that'll take away some of the stress. Start looking early, start writing early, ask for your recommendation early, work on your resume early, just as much as you can do before the deadline, the easier it's going to be on you and the better quality your application is going to be anyway. So yeah, just give yourself plenty of time, give yourself a lot of grace, a lot of patience, and remind yourself that you are probably a lot more qualified than you think that you are. So don't undersell yourself too. It's really easy to compare yourself to your peers and to all of these crazy, accomplishments that you're seeing online and everything, but that doesn't mean that you are unqualified to be doing the thing that you're doing and to be applying for it. So just do your best and try. I think that's the best advice that I can give overall. If you had a super specific like NSHSS question or even just like a general one that we didn't get to today, please feel free to email me at scholarships@nshss.org. If you go to the scholarships tab on our website and scroll down to the bottom, there'll be an email down there that you can ask, and we do our best to get back to you within like 48 hours. So if we didn't get to your question, please send me an email there. I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as I can. And thank you so much to all of our wonderful panelists. I learn so much every time that I do these, just from the students and like from the student perspective of what it's like on the other end of the scholarship process. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to share your wisdom and your journey. Students learn a lot from other students. So it's very valuable to have you here. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for joining us and for, taking time out of your evening to ask these kinds of questions. You're already on the right path towards success, even by just listening and by asking the questions. So yeah, if you have any other additional things that you want to ask, please send us an email. We're here to help you. And once again, this recording will be on our website and on our YouTube channel. It'll be under the resources tab, and it'll say webinars, and then towards the bottom, it'll say past webinars. So it'll be this one, and then some other ones from the past with other scholarship winners. We do one of these every few months, so there's quite a few on the website. If you want to look at different perspectives and stuff, highly encourage you to do so. Yeah, thank you all so much for your time this evening, and I hope you have a great rest of your night. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.